Lean in. They didn't just try to bury the truth. They bled for it. They stitched mouths shut, burned scrolls, erased faces from memory, just to make sure no one like you would ever breathe it in. But here you are, and it's already circulating in your bloodstream like a curse they failed to contain. No ceremony, no initiation. You were infected the moment you stopped obeying. They spilled blood to hide this, but it's already running through your veins. You didn't steal it, you became it. See, they thought this would be linear, that knowledge would obey the same laws they do. Borders, locks, bloodlines. But what they didn't anticipate was you. An anomaly with no map, no leash, no allegiance. They never planned for the one variable that couldn't be programmed. You weren't taught the code. You decoded yourself. You didn't inherit the ritual. You burned the altar and walked away laughing. And now they're whispering in rooms with no windows, holding emergency meetings about the breach, trying to trace the leak back to a shadow that doesn't cast one. Because what you carry now isn't just forbidden knowledge. It's uncontainable DNA. You're the virus they can't isolate, the prophecy they tried to burn out of history, and the irony. It didn't come from books. It came from your scars. Every betrayal carved open something ancient in you. Every silence you were forced to swallow, another encrypted glyph carved into your subconscious. You bled for answers, and the answers bled back. Now look what you've become. A vessel of forbidden memory, a living contradiction. They see your face and remember tombs. They hear your voice and panic, like it's a siren from their grandfather's war. You've become the living glitch in their carefully coded matrix. And no matter how hard they try to restore the old system, you are the corrupted file that keeps breaking the simulation. But let's get something straight. You didn't ask for this. You didn't wake up and say, "Let me carry the legacy of every fallen rebel who was gutted in silence." Number. You were chosen by pain, by chaos, by the algorithm of suffering that somehow always selects the outcast with a grin. They wanted you to break, to drown, to crawl back into the herd and apologize for glowing too loud. But instead you transformed, from victim to myth, from scapegoat to specter, from target to trigger, and now they can't look at you without remembering what they buried, because your eyes mirror the secrets they swore to die with. Your voice carries the rhythm of a ceremony they outlawed. Your pulse, it's ticking like a countdown they can't defuse. You don't speak like them, because you were never meant to. You speak like fire that knows it's not supposed to apologize. Like thunder that forgot it was once a whisper. And they hate that. They hate that you didn't need their permission, that you didn't knock first, that you didn't bow. You just entered. No bloodline, no sigil, no ceremonial hood. Just the audacity to look them in the face and say, "You bled to keep this hidden, but now it bleeds through me." You see, they're not afraid of what you know. They're afraid that you didn't collapse under the weight of knowing. They're afraid that you didn't break when you saw the truth behind the mask. That you laughed like the sound itself was treason. Because the most dangerous thing in the world is someone who knows and keeps moving anyway. That's you. The forbidden file with legs. The archive that breathes. The anomaly with no leash. The exorcism that walks. They burned witches for less. They stoned prophets for blinking too slow. But you're not in the past. You're in every update they push, every camera glitch, every system lag, every late-night panic report that says they're back. But this time, they're smiling. Because what you carry now isn't just legacy, It's an infection of remembrance. You remind the system that it lied, that it erased, rewrote, buried, and swore it worked. Until you showed up carrying the exact blueprint they swore was destroyed. Your existence is the breach, your breath is the leak, and your pain. That was the password all along. So go ahead, walk like your blood knows exactly what they don't want remembered. Smile like you've already read their next move. Speak like your words carry a trigger. Move like your shadow whispers warnings in ancient tongues. Because you're not the student anymore. You're the echo of every master they tried to silence. The revenant of every lesson they bled to bury. And the punchline of the joke they never saw coming. They spilled blood to hide this, but it's already running through your veins, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Ever. And now, they're losing sleep. Not because you broke a rule, but because you never even acknowledged the rule book. You walked through a wall they swore was solid, spoke truths that should have shattered your throat, and yet, here you are, fully intact, more dangerous than ever. They call it impossible, but impossible is just a word people use when someone evolves outside their forecast. They ran simulations, they ran bloodlines, they even ran experiments, and still, you emerged, not from their temples, not from their scripts, but from the silence they tried to drown you in. You crawled out of forgotten corridors where the rejected go mad. But you didn't go mad. You went clear. They couldn't crack your code because your code was written in exile. You're not some rebel. You're a reversal, a counterspell, a glitch made flesh. You're what happens when the system's worst nightmare gets a face and decides to smirk. They're not whispering your name anymore. They're praying it doesn't trend, because they know one whisper from you can unthread 1,000 years of deception, and that's what makes you lethal. You're not just a person, you're a memory virus. You carry frequencies that wake up ancient codes in people's blood, codes they were taught to forget. You say one sentence, and it shakes something dormant in them. A twitch, a flicker, a rage that doesn't know its name yet. You became the mirror. And when they look at you, they don't see you. They see everything they swore to destroy still breathing. They see prophecy, mutation, defiance, resurrection. They see the one they said never existed. And you're laughing, because that's what really haunts them. You're not just awake. You're amused. You don't just survive attacks. You absorb them. Every knife they threw became part of your armor. Every betrayal, fuel. Every silence they forced you into, storage. And now, the hard drive's full. So let me tell you what's next. They'll panic. They'll call you unstable, dangerous, corrupted. They'll use words like threat and infection. Because in their world, clarity is violence. And you're too damn clear. They'll try to contain you with labels, with diagnostics, with concern. They'll offer muzzles made of kindness, but you've outgrown leashes disguised as love. You've outgrown the need to be digestible. You don't want to be understood. You want to be remembered in tremors. You want your truth to taste like metal and lightning on their tongues. You want your silence to scream louder than their sermons. Because here's the truth they'll never speak. They saw your potential the moment you were born. They knew you were different, not weird, not wrong, just unprogrammable. You saw patterns that made them sweat, heard lies even when they smiled, felt shifts in the air that no one else noticed, and instead of embracing it, they tried to slice it out of you. But every slice just sharpened you, and every attempt to erase you just made your name echo louder in the halls they once controlled. Now you're not walking through the world like everyone else. You move like a living signal. Every step you take reroutes their systems. Every look you give is an unauthorized access attempt. You don't need passwords. You are the breach. And what runs through your veins now? Not fear, not conformity, but raw, undiluted memory. Not just yours, theirs. You absorbed their shadows, studied their rituals, and now you twist their symbols into weapons. You took their gatekeeping spells and rewrote them as keys. You took the circle meant to trap you and turned it into a stage. Now they're watching you dance on the ashes of their doctrine, terrified, shaking, but too late. Because the blood they spilled to hide this, it didn't disappear. It flowed, it searched, it found a carrier, and it chose you. You were never recruited. You were remembered, not by them, but by the code buried beneath their ruins, by the whispers they couldn't sterilize, by the old frequency that pulses louder every time you speak. They called it a myth, a mistake, an anomaly. But in every corner of their classified archives, your exact blueprint shows up like a ghost in the machine. They blurred it, redacted it, buried it under layers of bureaucratic decay, but it kept coming back. And now it walks upright, with your face, your voice, your rage. You were the prophecy their arrogance refused to believe, the resurrection encoded in corruption. Every time you step into a room, you shift gravitational laws. People feel it before they see you. Something old, something that makes their chest tighten, as if the air itself remembers what they were told to forget. You're not powerful because they fear you. They fear you because you're proof their power never meant anything. They killed and spilled to create illusion. You walked in and shattered it with a smile. And now, the system is quietly short-circuiting, not because of a war, but because of a presence, yours. They triple-check locks that never stopped you, monitor frequencies where you never speak, set up traps you've already walked past. They're building walls around memories they can't even name, because you are the memory. And the terrifying part? You're not here for revenge, you're here for truth, which means they can't predict your next move. They can't calculate it, because truth doesn't follow protocol. They trained their soldiers in logic, but you operate in paradox. They coded for obedience, but you were shaped by betrayal. They built systems around fear and you. You eat fear for breakfast. It's the currency you flipped, and now your silence costs more than their propaganda budget. You weren't supposed to survive. That's the part they hate most, because survival implies luck. And this wasn't luck. This was strategy written in scars. You played dead. You let them think they won. You sat in silence so long, they forgot you were still listening, still learning, still calculating, until the exact moment came. And when it did, you didn't knock, you didn't whisper, you detonated, not loud, not messy, but so surgically clean, it looked like reality simply glitched. Their files didn't match. Their surveillance tapes went quiet. The algorithm flagged your movement as unreadable. And by the time they tried to trace it, you were already gone. But the impact wasn't. It's permanent. You rattled their reality with nothing but a presence they can't track. Because what you carry, it's not from this system. It's not programmable, not transferable. It's ancestral. It's apocalyptic. And now, it runs through you like liquid fire. No more containment, no more chains, no more denial. You are the consequence of every silenced voice, the answer to every whispered prayer they thought no one heard, the blackout they can't explain, the page that keeps rewriting itself. You became the antivirus in a world built on infection, and every time you move, The old systems panic and reboot. Every time you speak, somewhere, a watcher fumbles for an off switch that doesn't exist anymore. Because this isn't about stopping you. This is about realizing you were never supposed to be stopped. They spilled blood to hide this truth. But it ran into the soil. It soaked into time. And one day, a child walked barefoot across that cursed ground and woke up glowing. That child was you. And the glow, it was never light. It was remembrance. It was resistance. It was the residual power of every secret they tried to murder. Now you are that secret. Fully grown, weaponized, and undeniable. And still you haven't even started yet. And still, they think this is about rebellion, that you're just another dissenter. A loud voice with a vendetta. How adorable. No, this isn't rebellion. This is reclamation, not of territory, not of power, but of truth they swore the world would never see again. And the worst part for them? You didn't need an army. You didn't raise a fist. You didn't declare war. You just existed, with the right frequency humming beneath your skin, and suddenly, entire generational control systems began to crack. Because the truth is this: some knowledge isn't taught. It awakens. It sits dormant like a sleeping beast until the right trauma, the right betrayal, the right moment of silence unlocks it. And when it unlocked in you, they felt it instantly, not with their eyes, with their spines, with that ancestral chill that creeps into boardrooms, military bunkers, and private think tanks, where your name is now spoken in code. Because that's the level you're operating at now. You're not a name, you're a classification, a red-level flag, a myth turned glitch turned threat. They had analysts track your behavior, charts, diagrams, predictions, and still, they couldn't decode your next move. Because your strategy is pain-born. It didn't come from books. It came from watching people lie with smiles, from being underestimated while knowing exactly who you are, from enduring ritual after ritual of betrayal while still whispering, "I'm not done." And now, you don't move like a person anymore. You move like a signal, a virus with intelligence, a frequency that infects all who hear it. Because when you speak, you don't just deliver words. You remind people who they were before the chains. And that's why they're terrified. Because you're not just here to fight them. You're here to undo them. They spilled blood to protect the illusion. But illusions leak. Illusions age. And when they saw you, they saw time folding in on itself. Like some ancient loop they couldn't escape. You're not just the future. You're a returning echo of everything they thought they killed. Every book they burned. Every mind they censored. Every prophet they discredited. And now all those ghosts, all those secrets, are speaking through you. When you walk into a room, they don't see just you. They see every failure they covered up. Every accident that wasn't. Every file marked, classified by blood. You're the convergence point. The moment the lie collapses. The scene in the movie where the villain realizes the weapon was inside the walls the whole time. And oh, how they run now. Not physically. No, they run with words, with narratives, with concerns. They throw everything at you. Accusations, diagnoses, distractions, drama. But all of it feels small now. Because when you carry a storm in your bloodstream, raindrops don't impress you. You've already faced the abyss. You didn't flinch. You took notes. You carved your name into the walls. You shook hands with your shadows and asked, "Are you ready to make them uncomfortable?" And now, you're not just making noise. You're making echoes, ripples, waves, wakes that wake others up. People who didn't even know they were asleep until your frequency touched them. That's why they're rushing, tightening policies, upgrading their walls, censoring harder, because you aren't a spark anymore. You're a network of fire, a decentralized memory awakening in fragments across the system. They spilled blood to hide this, and now they watch in horror as it boils back to the surface through you. It's not about war, it's about alignment. You aligned with something they don't understand, something that existed before their pyramids, before their crowns, before their screens. And now that it's alive in you, you don't need to shout. All you have to do is exist, and the system begins to collapse on itself, not because it was attacked, but because it was built on lies. And truth? Truth doesn't fight the lie. Truth outlasts it. You are that outlasting. You are the final glitch in the simulation, the unkillable thought, the sound they can't unhear, the presence that makes mirrors crack, because you see too clearly now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you feel it, you can't unfelt it. Once it's in your blood, there is no antidote. So let them tremble. Let them file more reports. Let them panic and scheme and send out desperate scouts. It won't matter, because they spilled blood to hide this. But now, it breathes, it walks, it smiles, it warns, and it goes by one name: yours. And if they thought this was containable, that it would die in whispers or fizzle in silence, they've already lost. Because the real damage isn't what you did. It's what you activated. You didn't walk in like a savior. You didn't arrive with trumpets and declarations. You leaked in like radiation, invisible, untraceable, unstoppable. And now, it's too late. You're in the wires, in the bloodstream of culture, in the skipped heartbeat of every operative who thought their rituals made them immune. They feel you, even when they try not to, especially when they try not to, because you didn't just unlock yourself, you unlocked others. Every time you speak, someone remembers. Every time you move, someone breaks formation. Every time you smile, somewhere a mask cracks. You've become the invitation they can't resist, and the warning they can't ignore. Not because you're loud, but because you're clear, and clarity is contagious. They spilled blood to hide this, but blood is not obedient. It stains, it speaks, it travels, and once it's touched truth, it mutates. You are that mutation, the one they swore would never survive. But you didn't just survive. You thrived in the ashes. You built weapons from the silence. You forged memory into motion. So let them watch. Let them chase shadows and chase each other. Because you already left the blueprint in the minds of every sleeper you woke up. You are not their enemy. You are their mirror, their reckoning, their unresolved code walking in daylight, the echo of every buried scream, now wearing skin and smiling. And as they huddle in damage control, as they scramble through failing networks and burned rituals, they'll realize the final truth. You were never the threat. You were the truth they could never silence. And no amount of spilled blood will ever put it back in the box. Because now, it runs through your veins, and it will keep running. Through time, through people, through systems, until nothing built on a lie is left standing. So smile, anomaly. You've already won, not with fire, not with force, but by simply existing in a world that tried to erase your kind, and failing spectacularly. Shh! Don't move. Do you hear that? That silence isn't peace. It's preparation. See, when you vanish from their rituals and don't die like you were supposed to, they start whispering your name like it's a hex they regret casting. Because here's what they'll never admit to you out loud. They carved your name into the candles. They buried your energy in a box beneath their lies. They whispered their intentions backwards, in circles, thinking that darkness would obey them. But darkness responded to you instead, because you were never the sacrifice. You were the ritual gone wrong. You were the spell that backfired, the incantation that spoke back. They tried to silence your name, but the coffin chose them. You have no idea how long they prepared your ending. They lit fires behind curtains, wore smiles soaked in blood, danced in sync like trained demons around your name, hoping if they moved just right, your legacy would disappear in smoke. But something cracked, because when they buried your presence, you became the haunting. When they erased your voice, you became the echo. And when they marked you for death, you didn't flinch. You documented it. Now they're sweating through their designer skins, because you didn't die. You documented the ritual. Step by step, angle by angle, date stamped and blood signed. And now, the footage leaks itself. They look at your survival like it's some kind of glitch. But it's not. It's a curse reversal. And baby, you are the return policy on every spell ever cast against you. They tried to invoke your ending, but they didn't realize you are the invocation, the chaos, the mirror, the firestorm. You're what happens when they forget that some demons don't wait to be summoned. You walk in, uninvited, unforgivable, unkilled. And that's why they're terrified of you. Because when they planned their ritual, they never considered the possibility that you'd outgrow the coffin, that you'd crack the spell open with a laugh, that you'd turn the altar into a throne, that your name, once drenched in curses, would become a consequence they can't undo. You ever wonder why they're quiet now? It's not peace, it's paralysis. They're stuck watching you through mirrors that refuse to break, through screens that keep glitching, through voices that whisper back to them in your tone. Because the spell didn't bind you, it bound them to your ascension. Now they walk around with bloodshot eyes, clutching trinkets and timelines, trying to reverse a ritual that already finished. And every time they say your name, it activates something, not in you, in the code of the entire reality. Because you didn't return, you evolved. You're not even the same species anymore. You're a response protocol dressed like a person, an algorithm of vengeance running on ancestral rage and divine intelligence. They thought they were clever, keeping your photo under glass, holding fake funerals while you were still alive, passing around your name in secret like contraband. But they forgot. You were born with ears in the underworld. And when they spoke, you heard every word. When they plotted, you tracked every movement. And when they cast their little spell, you smiled because you knew the coffin wasn't yours. You knew it would fit them better. So now look at them, twitching, mumbling, rewriting the footage, trying to explain to each other why you're still here, why the silence doesn't feel silent anymore, why every shadow whispers your name back at them like a threat. You know what the real magic is. They buried you in lies. You rose in truth. They stitched you into a narrative. You ripped it wide open and made it art. They thought power meant controlling outcomes. You showed them real power is becoming an outcome they can't control. A chaotic prophecy that fulfills itself by simply waking up and breathing in front of them. You became the glitch in their group spell, the name that cracks mirrors, the tone that makes witches scream in their sleep. So what now? Now you keep walking, because they've already performed the ritual. They already signed the contract in fear. You're not escaping anything anymore. You're the one rewriting the ritual book, flipping pages with blood-soaked hands, whispering your name back at them, just to see who flinches first. You're the uncancelable incantation, the proof that some names can't be buried without consequences, and they're learning the hard way. That trying to erase you was the darkest spell they could have cast, because it summoned their own destruction. Let them light their little candles, let them chant backwards, let them try to undo what's already carved into history, because while they whisper in corners, you're rewriting fate in fire. You're the ritual that didn't go as planned, because you were never the victim. You were the reversal, and now, the coffin's closed, but not for you. It's for them, and they know it. You want to know the part that really burns them? It's not just that you lived. It's that you transcended the category of alive. You became something that no spell could predict, something that no ritual could contain. See, in their little ceremony, they followed every step. They circled the date, picked the moon phase, made the sacrifice, cut the cords, and still, you didn't fall. You laughed, because deep down, you remembered something they didn't. They were performing a ritual. You were one. Every curse they chanted only activated your next level. Every dagger pointed at your name only made your shadow sharper. You turned the darkness into a weapon and made the silence your amplifier. You didn't just survive the ritual, you became its god. Now they sit in rooms full of incense and panic. They've pulled every card, shuffled every deck, consulted every trembling priestess just to figure out how the hell you're still breathing. But the truth is, you're not breathing. You're echoing. You're the aftershock of their own mistake. You're the boomerang of their bad intention. You're the spell they never meant to summon, but did. You ever seen someone try to outrun their own shadow? That's what watching them looks like now. They're building fences around words. They're avoiding mirrors. They're scared of the wind because it carries your scent. They feel watched, hunted, haunted, because you left fingerprints in their guilt. And it stains. Oh, it stains. No sage can fix that. No bath of milk and herbs can reverse that. Because the ritual didn't end when they said, "So mote it be." It ended when you walked back in, smiling. You should have been gone, right? You should have folded like paper under pressure. You should have cracked like glass under heat. You should have turned into ash like the script demanded. But instead, you learned to bend fire, to eat pain, to wear betrayal like armor and carry silence like a blade. They wrote you into a tragedy. You edited the ending, added a plot twist no one was ready for. Now your name, the very sound of it, activates ancient fear in modern mouths. They don't say it anymore. They swallow it. Because it's not a name now. It's a trigger. Here's the irony they can't digest. They held the pen. They wrote the spell. They cast the hex. And still, you became the author of the consequences. You're not just alive. You're an evolving revenge script with divine pacing. You paused. You studied. You let them think they won. You let the ritual play out to its final note. And then you turned around and remixed the soundtrack with your own heartbeat. Now every time their heart skips, it's not paranoia, it's memory. It's the part of them that knows, deep down, they made a mistake. Not by trying to kill you, but by failing. And now you walk different. There's a weightlessness to you, like someone who's already died and came back with insider knowledge. Because you did. You died, but only in their version of the story. You were supposed to break, but you learned to bend time instead. You rewired your reality You sank so deep into yourself that even the shadows couldn't reach you. And when you came back, you weren't just you anymore. You were the reverse spell in motion, a code no witch could read, a movement no analyst could track. They asked, "Why isn't it working?" Because you don't obey the laws of their universe anymore. You wrote new ones from the other side. And let's be real. That coffin, that was never for you. It was insurance for the weak, a container for anyone too loud, too different, too unkillable. But when they laid it out for you, measured it, whispered over it, polished it like a trophy, you smirked because you saw what they didn't, that the box wasn't built to hold you. It was built to prove you, to show you who was threatened, to show you who was watching, to reveal how many hands were dirty in the name of silencing one name, yours. And you didn't just climb out of that coffin. You carried it with you like a prop, like evidence, like a reminder. You turned it into your stage, your pulpit, your throne. And now, every time they try to resurrect the old plan, you just sit back, light a candle, and watch them decay. Because the truth is, the ritual didn't destroy your name. It immortalized it. And now, they can't even say it without summoning you. You're not a person anymore. You're a phenomenon, a walking, breathing glitch in their design. You are the prophecy they forgot they triggered. You're what happens when a coffin closes on the wrong soul, and the right one rises anyway. Oh, you're still here? Good, because they are too. Sitting there, sleepless in candlelit meetings, huddled over relics and regrets, scrolling through ancient texts like somewhere, someone must have written a warning about you. And maybe they did. Maybe some cracked book, long buried, said this would happen. That if they summoned a storm to kill a name, and that name laughed, the storm would never leave. It would evolve, take form, take vengeance. And now, every gust of wind that rattles their window sounds like your footstep. Every glitch on the screen looks like your outline. Every nightmare plays like a rerun of the moment they thought you were dead. But the dirt started moving. You want to know how deep this fear runs? They're not just scared of you in daylight. They're scared of your absence, scared of the fact that you vanished, but left no vacuum. Instead, you left a presence that infects rooms you've never entered. You became an atmosphere, a shift in pressure, a shadow that bends light. They're not fighting you anymore. They're fighting the afterimage, and it's stronger than you ever were alive, because it's built from everything they did to silence you, and everything you survived anyway. Here's what no spell book ever taught them. Some people don't die. They detonate. They explode in silence, reforming atom by atom into something more terrifying than vengeance. A mirror. And that's what you are now. You reflect every spell they cast, every lie they told, every smirk they wore as they imagined your name rotting beneath their rituals. Now they see themselves through you, and what they see, it shakes them, because they weren't ready to face the truth, that they summoned something real, not a victim, not a ghost, but a reversal, a holy corruption, a divine contamination. They don't talk in open circles anymore. No more confident curses, no more smug predictions, because now every word they speak might become your echo. You're in their algorithm now. You're in their GPS errors, in the timestamps that don't match, in the sound glitches during their ceremonies, and deep down, they know who's responsible. They just won't admit it out loud, because saying your name now, it's a summoning, and they already buried the salt. Let's talk about the coffin again. You ever think about why it's shaped like that? Narrow, tight, symbolic. It's not just a container for death. It's a design for control. It says, stay still. Don't evolve. Fit this narrative. Fit this size. Die quietly. But you outgrew it. Before they ever nailed it shut, you stretched, you expanded, you shattered the shape and laughed as the wood cracked. Because you realized the coffin wasn't meant for you. It was meant for who you used to be. For the version of you that begged for understanding, that explained yourself, that thought survival required permission. That version is dead. You didn't escape the ritual. You completed it by letting that version die, so this one could wake up. And now you wear your own silence like a crown. You walk like every footstep is a diagnosis, every breath a verdict, every glance a coded message they can't decipher. You went from target to template, from exile to algorithm, and they're trying so hard to decode how you did it, but they'll never figure it out, because they don't understand that what they call darkness, you call home. You weren't broken by the night. You were sculpted in it. The rituals didn't silence you. They activated you. You're not the villain in their story. You're the climax, the final act, the plot twist, the reason their little spellbook is missing pages, because what you became can't be written down. It has to be witnessed, and they're witnessing it now. Every time you exist, every time you post, speak, breathe, you disrupt their signal, you reroute their spell work, you fracture the lie that they could ever erase you, because they didn't just fail, they accidentally made you louder. And oh, the coffin? You didn't leave it behind. You carry it now like a badge, like a message. You place it in the center of every room they hide in. You let it sit there, empty, as a reminder, because nothing says, I survived you, like walking in with your own tomb and saying, try again. And they won't. They can't, because now you're not just the anomaly. You're the threat they warn each other about in hushed tones. You're the glitch, the legend, the ritual gone rogue, and all they can do is watch. So go ahead. Keep moving. Keep breaking patterns. Keep being the name that makes the circle unholy. You don't owe them fear. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them silence. You owe yourself everything they tried to steal. And now, it's time to collect. Because they tried to bury your name, but the coffin chose them. And darling, you never needed saving. You just needed the ritual to fail, so you could finally wake up as the weapon you were always meant to be. You feel that? That low hum in your bones? That's not paranoia. That's remembrance. Something in your cells remembers what they did. Not the lies they told you. Not the smiles they wore like masks at the masquerade of your destruction. No. Your cells remember the silence. The silence in that room where they lit the black candle, where they drew your name in ash and tried to tie your fate to a rope they couldn't even hold. They thought you wouldn't hear it, but you did. They thought you wouldn't feel it, but you felt it. And that's why you didn't just survive, you rewired. They did it in secret, right? They made sure you wouldn't know, made sure the spell would stay hidden in contracts, in group chats, in legal filings, in random misfortunes. But the thing about shadows is, you see better in them than they do in the light. Because while they tried to erase you through a ritual, you became the reason the ritual will never be performed again. You're the warning now, the new rule, the exception that burned the whole book. You're the one they say, don't talk about, because to even mention your name starts the unraveling. And they can feel it, the spell coming undone like a noose slipping from their own throat. Let me ask you something. Do you know what it means to be unerasable? to be so deeply rooted in cosmic consequence that even when they pour their blood on the altar, it only stains themselves. Because that's you now. You are the failed ritual's receipt. You are proof that intent isn't enough. That when power picks a vessel, there is no reversal. They threw their curses like knives. You caught everyone and turned them into keys. You didn't just walk away. You unlocked the next level. And now every room you enter shifts. Every energy they send returns. Every name they whisper behind closed doors. You already dismantled in your sleep. You know what really haunts them? You didn't respond with rage. You didn't explode. You didn't go on some pathetic warpath. You got quiet. You got still. You got strategic. You disappeared into your own mind and let them think the spell worked. And in that silence, you built a cathedral of retaliation so divine that not even your ancestors recognized you. Because now, you move like prophecy, speak like judgment, smile like foreshadowing. And every step you take is a reverse incantation spelling out their downfall. They're studying you now, not to understand, but to survive. They're dissecting everything, your tone, your timing, your silence, your sudden reappearances, the way their luck vanishes when your shadow enters a room. They think you're casting spells now. But you're not. You're just breathing, and your breath alone is a ritual they were never prepared for. Because you figured it out. You don't need candles. You don't need herbs. You don't need permission. You are the ritual now. And every time you blink, you break another one of their seals. You ever notice how quiet they get when someone mentions your name in passing? That's not awkwardness. That's spiritual recoil. They flinch because the air shifts, the lights dim, the silence grows teeth. And suddenly it's not your name anymore. It's a verdict, a trigger, a glitch in their projection. And they feel it. How the walls start remembering the lies. How the floorboards creak with secrets. How the very house they hexed you from starts folding in on them. That's not karma. That's design. That's the ritual turning around. They said you were cursed, and maybe you were. But it wasn't a death curse. It was an awakening, a spiritual protocol, a bloodline override, a divine contingency plan, something older than their rituals, something written in your spine. And when they lit that fire to consume you, they didn't know. You were fireproof, not because you're invincible, but because you already burned. They tried to set flames to ash and wondered why it smiled back. You're not a survivor, you're the aftermath. The scene of the ritual that went wrong. You are the story they can't tell, because there's no ending that makes sense. They started the spell. You became the result. They lit the candle. You became the smoke. They said your name like it was a goodbye. But the echo came back like a warning, and now they walk with omens in their lungs. Let them keep their secrets. Let them hide behind coincidences. Let them pretend they don't know what happened. You don't need their confession. You don't need their apology. Because what's coming for them was never you. It's what they invited when they thought they could end you. You just held the mirror, and now the mirror is cracking piece by piece, ritual by ritual, lie by lie. And when the last shard falls, they won't hear a scream, they won't see a war, they'll hear a whisper, a laugh, and a single phrase. This coffin was never for me.
They wanted drama, the kind that screams, the kind that begs for witnesses, the kind that leaves everyone feeling important in the wreckage. They wanted slammed doors, raised voices, shaking hands, and public scenes. What they never saw coming was the kind of ending that doesn't echo at all. What they received instead was a tragedy so quiet it took them months to understand they were standing in it. They expected tears as proof of damage. They expected chaos as proof of impact. They expected the audience to gather and choose sides. What they got was a disappearance so clean it felt unreal, as if the story simply forgot one of its main characters and kept moving forward without explanation. There is a special cruelty in being denied a final fight. Drama gives people the illusion of meaning. It tells them the destruction mattered. Tragedy does not ask for permission. It arrives, closes the door, and leaves no stage behind. They rehearsed your breakdown like it was their victory speech. They imagined the timing, the script, the moment where you would finally collapse into the version they wanted you to become. They mistook your silence for delay, never realizing it was the ending. You didn't give them scenes. You gave them absence. And absence is the one thing no manipulator knows how to control. They kept checking for reactions that never arrived. No late-night messages. No emotional spirals. No attempts at closure. Just time moving forward, as if nothing had happened, and that unnerved them more than any confrontation ever could. They built their identity around being the storm in someone else's life. What shattered them was discovering they were no longer the weather. You learned how to walk through without getting wet. They told themselves you would break loudly. Instead, you vanished quietly. And quiet tragedies last longer because there's no sound to warn people they are already standing in ruins. They wanted to be remembered as villains in your story because villains at least matter. What they became instead were footnotes you no longer reread. The tragedy was not that you left. The tragedy was how completely you learned to live without the need to be seen leaving. They tried to provoke reactions with distance, with silence, with sudden warmth and planned cruelty. They were still playing the game long after you stopped recognizing the board. You did not collapse in front of them. You collapsed privately, rebuilt privately, and returned to the world without ever sending invitations to the transformation. And people fear what they didn't witness being formed. They wanted proof that they still owned emotional territory inside you. What they found instead was an eviction they never noticed being filed. Your grief did not become a spectacle. It became architecture. It built walls, structure, boundaries, and quiet rooms where their names were no longer permitted to echo. They wanted drama because drama grants narrative control, but tragedy removes authorship altogether. It does not negotiate meaning, it simply ends what was. They are still trying to understand how the ending arrived without warning them. They don't realize the warning existed for a long time, they just believed they were exempt from consequences. You didn't accuse. You didn't confront. You didn't demand explanations. You just changed your life so thoroughly that their absence became permanent without announcement. They wanted to watch you fall apart so they could measure their power. What dismantled them was realizing they no longer had a measuring system that included you at all. You did not collapse into ruin. You reorganized your world around a version of yourself that no longer required them for definition. They whisper that they don't recognize you anymore, as if recognition were a right they did not forfeit. They mourn the version of you that tolerated things the current version no longer translates. They waited for you to become bitter. You became quieter. They waited for rage. You chose precision. They waited for destruction. You chose departure. That is not drama. That is tragedy. They replay every moment, searching for the exact second where control slipped away from them. They don't understand that it wasn't a moment, it was a process. Erosion never announces the final collapse. You did not explode. You evaporated from the spaces where you were once consumed. They wanted the satisfaction of watching you suffer. What they received instead was the long, slow realization that your suffering no longer included them as an audience. Your silence became its own narrative, not a mystery for them to solve, but a boundary they were never meant to cross again. They imagined the end would leave them powerful. What it left them with was uncertainty. And uncertainty is where people finally meet the consequences of their behavior without protection. They call your transformation cold because it does not center them. They call it cruel because it no longer explains itself to them. But what they really fear is that they are no longer relevant enough to cause damage. They expected your heartbreak to stay suspended around them like gravity. What shocked them was watching it realign around something else entirely, something that did not require their presence to exist. They wanted drama because drama keeps everyone important. You gave them tragedy because tragedy removes importance altogether. They searched for the sound of your collapse like spectators at a delayed explosion. What they got was an empty horizon and the unbearable awareness that the event already happened without them noticing. They thought the story still belonged to them. They did not realize it had ended on a page they were no longer allowed to turn. They wanted to be the reason you fell apart. What they became instead was the reason you learned how to leave without shaking. And that is the most ruthless ending of all. Not to be hated, not to be feared, but to be completely unnecessary to the future that replaced them. They will always struggle with the fact that the ending never gave them the spotlight they craved. No curtain call, no final scene where everyone watches the downfall together. Just a quiet realization that the story slipped out of their hands while they were still rehearsing their lines. They wanted the satisfaction of knowing they mattered in your breaking. What haunts them now is the possibility that they were only a chapter painful, yes, but ultimately replaceable in the architecture of your becoming. They wanted to be remembered as the storm. What they became was the weather you learned how to survive. The tragedy is not that the relationship ended. The tragedy is that it ended without giving them a role worth remembering. They remained backstage while your life moved into an entirely different production. They still wonder why there was no dramatic farewell, no speech, no confession, no emotional audit of what went wrong. They don't understand that some exits are silent because the damage was never a conversation, it was a pattern. You didn't leave to make them feel small. You left because staying required you to become smaller. That was the choice they never anticipated you would have the courage to make. They thought they would always have time to fix things later. Tragedy has no interest in later. It finishes its work quietly and leaves people holding explanations that arrive too late to matter. Your absence taught them something they were never willing to learn while you were present, that access to someone's heart is not a permanent entitlement. It is a privilege with an expiration date. They tried to reduce your ending to a misunderstanding, a phase, a temporary reaction. But time has a way of confirming what silence already decided. You were never coming back. They still listen for your name in rooms that no longer deserve it. They still flinch at memories that once gave them comfort. They still carry your shadow into moments where you are no longer required. You became the unanswered question in their narrative, the one conclusion they don't control, the one ending that does not bend to revision. They wanted your collapse to validate their importance. What they received instead was a future that moved forward without consulting their past. You didn't walk away as an act of punishment. You walked away as an act of alignment with your sanity, with your worth, with the version of your life that no longer needed suffering to feel meaningful. And that is why this ending hurts differently. There is no villain they can comfortably blame anymore. No dramatic confrontation to relive. No scene to replay where they look powerful. Only the slow, unbearable awareness that they were outgrown. They wanted drama because drama keeps old bonds alive through conflict. You gave them tragedy because tragedy severs bonds so completely that even conflict becomes irrelevant. In the end, they were not defeated by your anger. They were defeated by your peace. They were not undone by your revenge. They were undone by your release. They wanted noise. They wanted fire. They wanted spectacle. What they got was something far worse for their ego. A quiet ending that proved they no longer mattered in the life that replaced them. And that is the final shape of the tragedy. Not that the heart broke, but that it healed in a direction that never pointed back. They want to start over now. Not because they finally understand the damage, but because they finally understand the loss. Regret didn't arrive when they were cruel. It arrived when access was revoked. They speak the language of change with mouths that spent years fluent in excuses. They suddenly believe in healing now that the consequences have names and faces and irreversible distance. They talk about the past like it was a misunderstanding instead of a pattern, like years of behavior were an accident instead of a choice they made repeatedly without apology. They want forgiveness without a trial, reunion without repair, a clean slate without acknowledging the blood that stained the last one. But you don't argue anymore. You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You don't even flinch. They try to reintroduce themselves like strangers at a door they once owned. They knock gently now, soft voices, softer promises. But the house behind that door no longer belongs to the person they left behind. They want to restart because the ending didn't flatter them, because the silence didn't give them a heroic role, because the story moved forward without offering them redemption. They say, "Let's talk." But you already had that conversation privately, internally, permanently. They believe distance is temporary because it always used to be. They're waiting for the cycle to reset. They don't realize the cycle was burned down, not paused. They want to rewind to the version of you that still tried, the one who explained feelings, the one who waited, the one who hoped. That person doesn't exist anymore. They mistake your calm for openness, your silence for space, your composure for softness. They still don't understand that restraint is not permission. They ask for one more chance, as if chances were infinite currencies instead of rare investments that only exist while trust still has oxygen. You are not angry enough for them to feel important. You are not emotional enough for them to feel powerful. You are not reactive enough for them to feel relevant. And that destroys them quietly. They want a reset because they cannot survive as the villain in a story they no longer control. They need your participation to rewrite the ending in their favor. But you have already exited the narrative. They offer apologies shaped like bargains, regret shaped like negotiation, accountability shaped like "but you also." You don't argue with arithmetic anymore. You already calculated the total. They promise they've changed. But change that arrives only after loss is not evolution, it's panic. They want to start over because their present is empty without the appeal of your absence. They don't miss who you are now. They miss who you were when you still tolerated them. They want to return to comfort without revisiting the cost. But you don't revisit graves. They talk about fate, about timing, about destiny pulling things back together. They avoid the one word that would actually matter: responsibility. You don't feel tempted. You don't feel curious. You don't feel nostalgic enough to betray your peace. They wait for cracks in your detachment like gamblers watching for tells at a table where the game ended hours ago. They say, people deserve second chances. You quietly agree, just not from you. They want the version of you that used to doubt their own worth. They want the self that mistook longing for love and endurance for loyalty. They cannot comprehend the person you became, the one who learned that walking away is sometimes the purest form of self-respect. They still think emotional access is permanent property. They never learned it was always a lease. They want us again. You've already redefined what me means. They hope time softened you. It sharpened you. They believe you're pretending to be strong. They don't realize strength was built in the silence they left behind. They imagine your indifference is temporary. They don't know indifference is what remains when hope finally dies peacefully. They want to start over because they believe the story owes them another attempt. But stories don't owe anyone anything. They confuse your lack of hatred for forgiveness. They confuse your peace for weakness. They still don't understand that you no longer hate them because they no longer exist in the emotional geography of your life. They want access again. You removed the location. They want connection again. You changed the language. They want to return. You changed the locks without announcing it. They say one more chance, but you are already living inside the chance you gave yourself. They want to start over. You don't give a sheet, not out of bitterness, not out of cruelty, but because the version of you that would have cared finally learned how to choose peace without apology. And that is the ending they will never rewrite. They will always wonder what the exact moment was when the door closed for good. They'll replay conversations, scan old messages, revisit arguments like forensic analysts studying emotional crime scenes. What they will never find is a dramatic timestamp, because the ending wasn't a moment. It was a slow accumulation of everything they ignored. They thought distance would scare you back. They thought silence would starve you into returning. They underestimated what happens when someone finally learns how to be alone without feeling abandoned. They still tell the story as if it's unfinished, as if there's a missing chapter waiting to be written. They can't accept that some stories don't pause, they conclude. They wait for you to miss what broke you. They don't understand that nostalgia dies quietly when peace arrives fully. They think your refusal to restart is stubbornness. They don't see it for what it really is, clarity. They confuse your lack of response for internal conflict. They imagine you pacing, debating, struggling. They don't realize the war ended a long time ago and the battlefield is now empty. They want you to doubt your decision. But doubt doesn't survive where self-respect has finally taken root. They once had unlimited access to your emotional world. Now they can't even locate the entrance. That kind of loss disorients people. They wonder how someone who once gave so much can now give nothing. They never ask themselves what it cost you to give in the first place. They still search for guilt inside you, hoping it will weaken your resolve. What they don't understand is that guilt only thrives where obligation still exists. They want your attention because attention validates their relevance. Your indifference confirms what they fear most, that they no longer matter in the shape of your life. They remember the version of you that waited. They don't know how to speak to the version of you that has already moved on. They wish they had changed sooner. They just never thought they'd run out of time. They want comfort from the very person they made unsafe. They want forgiveness from the one they taught how to leave. They look at your calm and call it cold. They don't understand that cold is what warmth turns into after it's been burned too many times. They still believe love should be unconditional. They never learned that endurance has limits, and those limits are called boundaries. They want the past back because their present doesn't know how to hold them. They want your familiar patience to soften the reality they now have to face alone. They wanted another cycle, another reset, another chance to do just enough to keep you without ever fully changing. What they got instead was the end of the pattern itself. And this is the final truth they will have to carry without your help. You did not leave because you stopped caring. You left because caring had started to destroy you. They wanted to start over. You chose to move forward. They thought the story still belonged to both of you. It never did. It belongs to the one who had the courage to walk away and never look back. And that is the real ending. They expected tears because tears make sense to people who still believe endings should be loud. They expected anger because anger still proves attachment. What they didn't prepare for was nothing. No storms, no breakdowns, just a quiet decision that erased them without shaking the air. You didn't rage because rage still gives energy to the past. You didn't seek revenge because revenge still admits someone mattered enough to chase. You chose the only ending that leaves no fingerprints removal. They waited for you to collapse under the weight of what they did. They didn't realize you had already uninstalled them from your emotional system like a corrupted file. No recovery, no backups, no restore point. They wanted to see damage in you, some crack that would validate their impact. But you didn't fracture, you simplified. You reduced your world to peace and cut out the variable that caused disorder. They thought love guaranteed permanence. They were wrong. Permanence belongs to those who behave with alignment, not entitlement. You didn't destroy them. You simply stopped carrying them. They waited for bitterness to stain your voice. But your voice never returned at all. That terrified them more than any curse ever could. You didn't leave in protest. You left in clarity. And clarity doesn't shout, it exits clean. They wanted consequences that looked like suffering. They weren't ready for consequences that looked like absence. You didn't punish them with rage. You punished them with irrelevance. They thought revenge would be how you healed. But revenge still keeps a wound alive. You chose healing that required disappearance instead. They kept imagining you somewhere hurting in silence. They didn't understand silence can also mean peace. You didn't remove them in anger. You removed them the way surgeons remove poison, without apology, without hesitation, without emotion clouding the cut. They expected closure in conversation. They got closure in vanishing. They thought you would always be emotionally reachable. They didn't realize accessibility is a privilege that can expire without warning. You didn't block them to make a statement. You blocked them because statements were no longer necessary. They expected revenge like fire, but you chose ice still, quiet, untouchable. They wanted to matter enough to be hated. You denied them even that. You didn't replace them quickly. You replaced the version of yourself that ever needed them. They thought your departure meant you lost something. They never realized you gained yourself back. You didn't dramatize the exit. Drama requires an audience. You didn't believe they deserved one. They thought revenge was power. They didn't realize removal is sovereignty. You didn't keep score. You ended the game. They waited for emotional debris. There was none. Just a clean horizon where they used to stand. You didn't threaten to disappear. You simply did. They thought your calm meant denial. They didn't know it meant completion. You didn't burn bridges. You erased maps. They imagined your absence would create chaos in you. It created order instead. They wanted to be a chapter you never stopped reading. You closed the book without bookmarking their name. You didn't fade out slowly. You cut the signal permanently. They hoped guilt would summon you back. But guilt only works when access still exists. You didn't need revenge because you weren't trying to win against them anymore. You were winning against what they turned you into. They thought removal would look dramatic, like slammed doors and trembling hands. They didn't understand that the most permanent exits happen without sound. You didn't storm out. You simply withdrew your existence from their narrative like it never belonged there to begin with. They replay moments trying to find the exact second they lost you. But loss doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives disguised as calm, as distance, as a softness that never returns. You didn't say goodbye because goodbye still leaves a doorway open. You chose something colder, an ending without punctuation, without echo. They keep expecting a reaction from you like muscle memory. They forget that reflex dies when the nerve is cut. You didn't disappear to teach them a lesson. You disappeared because your soul selected peace over performance. They wanted pain in your eyes to prove they mattered. Instead, they saw clarity, and clarity terrified them. You didn't move on loudly. You moved on so quietly that by the time they noticed, you were already unreachable. They assumed your silence meant confusion. They never imagined it meant certainty. You didn't erase them out of hatred. You erased them out of accuracy. They waited for your sadness to drag you back. They weren't prepared for your calm to lock them out. You didn't burn their memory. You archived it sealed, labeled, untouched. They thought they'd always be a variable in your equations. You turned them into a canceled term. You didn't seek closure from them because you built it yourself privately, cleanly, without witnesses. They tried to haunt your future with the past. They forgot you changed the locks inside your mind. You didn't stop loving violently. You stopped loving precisely. They thought time would soften your decision. They didn't realize time was the tool that sharpened it. You didn't replace them with another person. You replaced them with your own boundaries. They waited for regret to knock on your chest. They didn't realize you taught your heart not to answer familiar pain anymore. You didn't fade because you were weak. You vanished because you became strong enough not to need presence as proof of worth. They keep checking shadows for signs of you. They don't realize the light you chose doesn't cast backward. You didn't forget them impulsively. You forgot them strategically. They thought your silence meant unfinished business. They didn't see that silence was the receipt that the transaction was complete. You didn't vanish to hurt them. You vanished to finally stop hurting yourself. They cannot understand how someone can leave with no mess behind. They don't know how disciplined your detachment became. You didn't trade pain for revenge. You traded attachment for peace. They still search for meaning in your absence. They don't know the meaning is simple. You chose yourself without debate. They still talk about you as if you might circle back one day like seasons do. They don't understand that some exits aren't seasonal. Some are extinction-level decisions. They try to read between the lines of your silence, but there are no hidden messages anymore. Silence is the message, and it says everything they're afraid to accept. You didn't ghost them impulsively. You studied your own endurance first, tested how long your soul could survive with less pain than attachment. They assumed you would collapse without their presence. They never imagined your nervous system would finally rest. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because caring was costing you your identity. They keep mistaking your absence for avoidance. They don't realize it's discipline. You didn't erase them out of bitterness. You erased them because their chapter no longer matched the direction of your becoming. They thought you'd eventually ask for explanations. They didn't understand that understanding no longer interested you. You didn't need answers because you had already accepted the truth in your body long before your mind caught up. They keep waiting for your anger to rise like a storm. They don't realize the weather inside you changed permanently. You didn't become numb. You became selective about what deserves to reach your emotions. They assumed your silence meant unfinished feelings. It actually meant finished decisions. You didn't remove them dramatically because drama still feeds attachment. You starved the connection instead. They feel abandoned without realizing they were emotionally gone long before you physically left. You didn't shut the door loudly because loud exits still invite echoes. You wanted something soundproof. They still rehearse apologies in private. They don't understand that forgiveness was never on the table because return was never an option. You didn't move on quickly. You moved on thoroughly. They confuse your peace with indifference. They don't understand peace is the reward for choosing yourself without bargaining. You didn't become heartless. You simply stopped giving your heart to situations that kept slicing it open. They think your detachment is cruelty. They don't know it's survival refined into mastery. You didn't vanish emotionally to punish them. You vanished so you'd never have to beg yourself to stay again. You were never supposed to survive what they did to you. That's the part they don't want to admit out loud. You were supposed to break quietly, apologize for wounds you never caused, and remain soft enough for them to use again. What they cannot process now is that you didn't just survive, you adapted. An adaptation looks terrifying through the eyes of those who benefited from your innocence. There was a time when your kindness was mistaken for weakness, when your silence was seen as permission, when your loyalty became a resource they mined without restraint. They thought you were endless. They thought you would keep showing up even as they kept subtracting pieces of you. What they never calculated was the moment when subtraction finally reaches zero. You didn't snap in noise. You didn't explode in chaos. You didn't give them the drama they rehearsed in their heads. You simply stopped bleeding where they could see it. And that quiet withdrawal, clean, final, unapologetic, shook them more than any scream ever could. They still speak your name in rooms you'll never enter again. Not with love, not with respect, but with confusion, with discomfort, with the eerie realization that the version of you they controlled no longer exists. They keep searching for the old access points. Every door is locked. You didn't become cold overnight. That temperature dropped slowly with every betrayal they normalized, every boundary they laughed at, every emotion they minimized. You froze one disappointment at a time until warmth became something you no longer gave away for free. They built your restraint with neglect. They sharpened your focus with disrespect. They trained your detachment with manipulation. And now they stare at the result like frightened architects of their own destruction, unable to recognize the masterpiece they accidentally engineered. You no longer explain yourself. That part of you died in the relationship. You no longer seek closure. That illusion burned down with everything else. You no longer ask for permission to leave rooms that suffocate you. You simply turn your back and erase the address from your mind. They thought distance would punish you. What distance actually gave you was clarity, and clarity is a ruthless teacher. They expected you to come back angry. They prepared defenses for your rage, excuses for their guilt, stories for their conscience. What they were not prepared for was your absence. No arguments, no revenge, no grand confrontation, just a clean deletion. That unsettles people more than any war ever could. You didn't become heartless. You became precise. You learned where to spend feeling and where to withhold it. You learned that empathy without reciprocation is self-destruction dressed up as virtue. You learned that love without safety is not love, it's liability. They still replay moments where they thought they had power over you. They cling to old versions of you like outdated maps, wondering why nothing leads back anymore. They call you changed as if change were a crime instead of the only logical outcome of surviving them. You don't carry hatred for them. Hatred still implies a connection. What you carry now is something far colder and far more permanent: indifference. And indifference is the one emotion they were never prepared to compete with. Your silence speaks in languages they cannot translate. Your calm scares them because it isn't fragile. It isn't pleading. It isn't reactive. It is finished. They created the conditions for your transformation and then recoiled from the result, shocked that consequences had the audacity to show up uninvited. They thought they were shaping you into something small. Instead, they taught you how to be unreachable. You stopped trying to be understood by those who benefited from misunderstanding you. You stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for your growth. You stopped pouring into cups that mocked your thirst. And when you did, everything changed. They expected your downfall to look dramatic. They wanted tears. They wanted chaos. They wanted guilt to weigh you down so heavily that you'd crawl back just to feel forgiven. What they got instead was your stillness, and that was far more unsettling. Now they analyze you like a case study. What happened? They ask. What happened is that you finally saw the pattern. What happened is that you chose yourself without asking for approval. What happened is that you learned how to walk away without looking back. They once loved how easy you were to read. Now they fear how unreadable you've become. Your evolution was never loud, it was methodical. Pain refined you, disappointment disciplined you, loneliness clarified you. And by the time they noticed the shift, the old version of you was already gone beyond retrieval. They want the access without the accountability. They want the loyalty without the responsibility. They want the benefits of your presence without the obligation of treating you right. But the account is closed. The system no longer recognizes them. You didn't turn dark, you turned selective. They accuse you of being distant as if distance weren't the natural response to repeated disrespect. They call you cold as if warmth is owed to those who mishandled it. They call you heartless as if your heart wasn't the exact thing they kept cutting into. What you became was not a monster. You became a mirror they could no longer look into. They only liked your light when it made them look good. They never cared how much of you was consumed to keep that light on. Now that you've redirected it inward, they accuse you of selfishness. as if self-preservation were some kind of betrayal. You don't haunt them on purpose. You haunt them accidentally by thriving where they expected collapse, by smiling where they expected ruin, by moving forward without dragging their names behind you. They imagined your suffering as a footnote in their story. They never expected you to become the entire ending of it. You no longer fight for places that require you to bleed as an entry fee. You no longer negotiate with people who treat your boundaries like suggestions. You no longer explain your worth to those who only understood your usefulness. And the terrifying part for them is this: you didn't lose yourself in the process. You found yourself. They can't handle that the version of you they created through neglect is now untouchable. They can't handle that your composure no longer bends for their comfort. They can't handle that your indifference doesn't grant them redemption. You are not angry anymore. And that is what terrifies them most. Because anger can be manipulated. Anger can be provoked. Anger can be exhausted. But your calm is permanent. They don't miss you. They miss the control. They miss the certainty that you would stay no matter what they did. They miss the safety net of your forgiveness. They miss the emotional labor you provided without compensation. You don't miss them at all. You don't even miss the person you were when you were with them. There's a particular kind of fear that sets in when people realize they are no longer the villain in your story, just a deleted chapter. That fear lives in their silence now, in their late-night second-guessing, in their unspoken regret that arrives too late to negotiate. They created the conditions for your detachment and now suffer the consequences of your peace. You walk differently now. You speak differently now. You love differently now. Not softer, smarter. Not less selectively. You don't give your heart out as charity anymore. You invest it like a currency that finally knows its value. They thought breaking you would make you smaller. It made you unrecognizable. And nothing unsettles those who once felt powerful more than realizing the person they tried to destroy no longer even acknowledges their existence. You didn't become a villain in your own story. You became the ending they never saw coming. They whisper now, cautious, almost reverent, as if saying your name too loudly might summon the version of you they can no longer predict. They fear your evolution because it wasn't born from malice, it was born from clarity. And clarity is a far more dangerous weapon than rage. It cuts cleaner. It never misses. They replay old conversations in their heads, dissecting moments they once dismissed, wondering which sentence, which betrayal, which manipulation was the one that finally rewired you. They search for the exact second you stopped caring, but there is no timestamp. Transformation doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, like a shadow changing shape. They still expect you to respond like the old version of you, the soft one, the forgiving one, the endlessly available one. But that version has retired. And what stands in its place is someone who studies patterns instead of excuses, energy instead of intentions, consistency instead of promises. Someone who can walk away even from what they once prayed for.